What's going on, everybody? Welcome back to another video. Today we're checking out the Cleveland Metroparks Zoo. So the first thing you see when you walk into the zoo is this donation bins area, but you actually get to pick which animal you'd like to donate to their conservation ship for. And then right away you can walk over and see the elephants, which is what we decided to do because we were told that they do an elephant walk first thing in the morning. So they move the elephants from one enclosure to the other enclosure. So we kind of wanted to check that out before heading out. The last elephant that they had do the elephant walk was their largest one, which is their only male. And I must say he was a massive elephant. And then after seeing all of the elephants, we swung a right and we headed over to see the bar-headed goose and the flamingo enclosure. We then took a bus ride up to the top of the hill where the Primate and Aquatics building is, so we could check that out to initially begin. The first monkeys that we ended up seeing were actually magpies. Then they had a section that was kind of like a nightlife area, and we saw the northern tree shrew, as well as an aye and a slow loris. After seeing the night active animals, we headed over and you were led back into seeing some monkeys as well as lemurs, and eventually you saw some fossa. Then we came across the mongoose lemur, which led us to one of my favorite animals, the ring-tailed lemur, which was pretty cool to see them very active and about. And then that led us to the red-ruffed lemur. After the red-ruffed lemur came the pied tamarin and the scarlet macaw. Then they had some two-toed sloths that were kind of fun to see them slowly moving about their enclosure. We had to hang out a while to see them actually move, but they did move eventually. Next to them was the golden lion tamarin and the Bolivian gray monkey, which was also housed with another two-toed sloth. That kind of led you into the fish and aquarium area, which one of the first things had this beautiful Madagascar tank that was set up. And we got to see one of my favorite fish, which is the cowfish, who just each individual cowfish has very unique personalities, which you can see him come up to the glass and kind of follow my finger, which was really entertaining. They also had this beautiful starfish tank, and then followed up by some clownfish tank, which housed so many new different types of clownfish, and there were so many of them just swimming around in the anemones. Then we got to see the walking batfish, which is located in the Caribbean. Located right next to them was 3 of the weirdest looking fish I have ever seen. They're called stonefish. And there's actually 3 in the tank, and they had a challenge to see if you could find them all, and let's just say they were very difficult to find. Then we came across the eastern hellbender, which is basically a salamander. And it's kind of interesting to note that they do have lungs, but they actually breathe through the pores in their skin. Right behind there, actually on the other side, was the Mueller's gibbons. And that led us to this beautiful aquarium that had neon tetras, angelfish, and discus all swimming throughout. Just a beautiful aquarium. Then they had these rainbow fish swimming around with this massive arapaima, which was kind of interesting, which was right next to a fun little porcupine puffer. Which then got to say hello to this shovel-nosed catfish who was right up by the glass, as well as a turtle in there, and then some plecos swimming around. They were also right next to some pacu who were massive. And then we headed over to this circle aquarium that had some beautiful seahorse swimming throughout there. They had some electric eels right next to them and some Mexican blind cavefish, which were interesting to read about as well. Heading right outside the Primate and Aquatics building were some gorillas who were lounging around and actually had some babies who were out playing. Walking down the path, you eventually hit some cheetahs who were all lounging around, and then we slowly took the deck walk down the hill back into the main part of the zoo. Once you finish up walking down the boardwalk, you actually end up at the Koala Junction, which is basically going to lead you into the Australian area of the zoo. They had some cool koalas just hanging out on the tree, as well as inside the building, some tree kangaroo and bush-tailed rat kangaroos. Leaving the Koala Junction, you head right into the main Australian area. So throughout the Australian adventure, you're going to see a whole bunch of different wallaroo, as well as red-necked wallaby and red kangaroos. At the end of the adventure, you're going to see some dingoes. We got to see them lounging around. And then you eventually end up at the petting yard, where you can see some llamas and mini horses. We then headed to the other side of the zoo, where the wilderness trek is, where we got to start out by heading to the Wolf Lodge, where we saw a beautiful little spotted turtle here. We also got to see some trout and then eventually beavers. And that beaver enclosure was actually really cool to see, because it led to a massive pond which had some very large fish in it, and as well as snapping turtles and some other ducks swimming around. The other side of that pond was an aviary that actually had even more ducks, and it had a beautiful bald eagle. Outside the Wolf Lodge was a group of caribou and a takin. Next was the jaguar and the red pandas, who were not very active today, and they were hiding in their box. Then we got to see the snow leopard and the tough deer and red-crowned crane. We also had bears, but we couldn't get a very good look at this one. You could kind of see him there, but he was just laying down. Right next to him was the American bison, who also had a little calf with her. There was also this sea lion enclosure that had all the sea lions swimming around back and forth. After seeing them, we got to head to the tiger passage to see all of the tigers who were out and about. Finally, we headed back down to the main part of the zoo, where we headed to the African savannah, and we got to see the lions who were out sunbathing. And eventually we got to see the giraffes, zebra, and antelope all in the safari. And the final stop was to see the rhinos, who had this beautiful little baby rhino who was out and running around. Overall, I thought this was a beautiful zoo that had plenty of animals that you could see. It was a very spread out zoo, so that was kind of a lot of walking. But they did have the bus that could take you up to the Primate and aquatics area, which was nice. And overall, it was a beautiful zoo, so I highly recommend it. So thanks for watching, everybody.